name is Henry Eisenstein, and within the next 30 days, I'm going to cross the $1 million revenue mark for my third company. And I did in my real estate brokerage business in about 30 months. And now that business does several million bucks a year. I did it in over $1 million in flips and wholesaling real estate in 24 months. And now that business does about $1 million to $2 million bucks a year or so. Also while acquiring $5 to $10 million a year worth of real estate. And then most recently doing that with my online consulting business. Like I said, is about to cross the $1 million revenue mark, which we did that in less than 30 months as well from the start. I did that achieved all of this while losing over $100,000 in paid advertising, while also spending over $100,000 on coaches and mentors to learn how to do it. And knowing exactly what I know now today, I probably don't plan on ever starting another business ever again. But I wanted to come to you guys and do a deeper dive as to why I don't plan on starting another business and break it down for you, how you can go from earning zero or from wherever you are right now to over $1 million a year in any type of business. So let's dive right in. So step one is about finding your niche. A lot of people think that, you should follow your passion, but I'm a huge believer that that is a load of crap. I don't believe in following your passion to start a business. I believe that you should choose a business because the business makes sense versus a passion and or a hobby is meant to just stay as your passion and or hobby so that when you make money from your profitable business, you could do more of what you love. Right now, I've become passionate about what I do in my companies, but by no means was I like, oh man, on my days off, I just want to go look at some real estate. That's not exactly how this started whatsoever. So I'm going to explain to you a couple key things about finding your niche that I think will allow you to make the right decisions when you're starting, if you do decide to start a business. So because I've started almost 24 businesses and about 20 of them did $0. One did a little bit. Actually, I had one that lost a ton of money, one that made a little bit of money, and then 3 that have made over $1 million. And 2 of those make over $1 million bucks a year every year right now. So anyways, let's kind of dive into this. So finding your niche. One of the most important steps to earning your first $1 million bucks is going to be figuring out the industry or product that you choose to dive into. So let me explain to you the 3 businesses, exactly why I decided on the 3 businesses that I decided on. And this way you can make the best decision for yourself. So number 1 is choose something with incredibly large margins. I did this in the commercial real estate brokerage business, right? Like a lot of people just as a real estate agent, a lot of people choose to sell houses. I chose to get into commercial real estate. I started in the residential space, made my first $1 million bucks in the residential space, and then have made several million now in the commercial world. I believe large margins are a huge aspect of what allows a business to actually be, quote, profitable, because it's not just about making money, it's about net profits, right? Like after all of your expenses are done and you work a really long work week or work month or work quarter or work year, you want to have some money left over in the bank. And it's a lot easier to do it when you have very large margins versus businesses. Like as an example, I love my mother to death, but she works in a business with very low margins and she sells a lot of product, right? She's in a product business, physical products. She actually helps artists sell their products, and it's really beautiful that she wants to do that, but it's a very low margin business, which makes it very hard for her to stay profitable. So I believe that when you choose large margin businesses, and again, this is in a business where, we specifically start as salespeople, right? Like, if you're in the selling yachts, selling jets, selling commercial real estate, some of the largest margin businesses out there, selling ships, selling, all these, the biggest things you could possibly imagine, selling companies, right? You have these very large margin fees, right? That's how we collect our money. It allows you to stay very profitable longer term, because if you're selling things like lamps in e-commerce, and your average margin's $5, you have to sell a lot of lamps to make, your rent payment, let alone anything else. Number 2 is choose something that slowly builds wealth and skills to acquire wealth. Let me repeat that very, very important thing. Choose something that will slowly allow you to build wealth or slowly allows you to build the skills to acquire wealth. So what I mean by this is if you're in a physical products business, you're learning a lot of different things, like, possibly, manufacturing, possibly the art of understanding negotiating, right? And, marketing and other things. But the reason why I like real estate as an example is that one thing that I like to do is I want to acquire a lot of real estate, build a lot of wealth through the equity of real estate. So by being in the industry, I'm learning more about the thing that I want to acquire more of, right? So it's like similar to being, a financial advisor, and more higher level, not just selling life insurance. but you learn more about the stock world, right? Like getting into the stock market and understanding why certain stocks can should be invested in, why others shouldn't. So that's why I like spending a lot of time in industries where I think that there's multiple benefits versus just choosing something because again there's just high margins in it. Plus also in like my type of world or many other places where there's already been proven success, right? I think it's a very, very smart thing to do, right? Like things like people like Elon Musk are very rare, right? Where like they create a product from complete scratch. Like he, sending rockets to the freaking to Mars, Tesla, things that really haven't ever been done before. I like going into proven model businesses, right? Like where this way, like I'm not reinventing the wheel. I just get to I model the most successful people in an industry and I do exactly what they do. And it might take me a little bit of time, but I can achieve what they have achieved before. Similar to like Roger Bannister, who ran the first sub 4 minute mile. And then a bunch of people did it right afterwards, and everyone thought it was impossible beforehand. But once you see that something's possible, you'll copy what they do, and you'll have the results. Next, choose something that doesn't pay by the hour, but or time involvement. Right. So a lot of people go get jobs that pay on a dollar per hour basis. Very difficult to be successful in these types of businesses or these types of jobs. Obviously, if you're being paid on a per hour basis, the only way for you to make more money is work more hours. And obviously, we want to be in an industry that is absolutely zero tied to our, time involvement. We want to have skill involvement, expertise involvement to be paid. This allows us to scale our freedom and our time and the amount of money that we make, right? Because if you're paid on time, the only thing that you can scale on is working more hours or having other people work more hours, right? To provide that service. But if you do it based on expertise, you can do something in 5 minutes and earn $100,000, which I've done. Choosing those types of, less dollar per hour and time involvement and more consultative versions. Next is choose something that has minimal startup costs. So the reason why I like sales, digital products, service-based businesses is because it has very, very minimal startup costs. Starting a restaurant, starting a yoga studio or something, anyways, like, and even yoga studio is a bad example, but starting a restaurant as an example, which I've had many people like, oh, I love chef, I'd be a chef or whatever. Starting a restaurant's incredibly expensive to start up, a lot of overhead. So just keep in mind that like starting something with very minimal startup costs to become profitable is a lot easier. Next, choose something that you're innately good at and better at than most. Like for me, I obviously love speaking. I have great communication. You put me in an environment with a lot of people. I like to talk. So for me, sales was a wonderful environment to get into. And it was very, and by the way, I actually hated getting on the phones at the very beginning, but I loved talking to people. And then when I just learned to kind of pivot and utilize that same expertise, but on the phones, my income exploded. Figure out a couple of things that everyone here is wonderful at something, figure out what you're great at, and then double down on that. Next is choose something where you can see yourself doing it for a minimum of 10 years. This is a huge mistake that most entrepreneurs make, is that they go into an industry thinking like, I'm going to give it a try, a good try. I'm going to give it a shot. I don't give anything a shot. And if I don't plan on being in the industry for at least 20 years, I don't plan on starting that company. I got into real estate thinking that I'm going to be in this industry for the next 20 years minimum. I now say that I'm 30 today. I got started when I was 20. I plan on being in this industry till around 70 or 80 years old. My grandfather's 97. God bless him. If I could have that life, I'd love to continue working until I'm 97. Keep my mind sharp. It's not about retiring. I don't want to retire for something that I absolutely love doing. I have ambitions to build a multi-billion-dollar fund in real estate, a multi-billion-dollar commercial real estate team sales organization with thousands of agents nationwide. That will take multiple decades to achieve, right? And that's why it's like when people say like, oh, I'm gonna give this a nice old-fashioned try, they give it 6 months and they go, oh, it didn't work out. Well, the reason why it didn't work out is because you didn't give it enough time. It's like working out for a week and going, damn, I don't have any abs. Like what's going on? Minimum 10 years. And I'm telling you that most likely it won't take you 10 years. Like I've said, like I'm not that smart. I'm a 2-time college dropout actually, and if I could build 3 companies and all of them have done over $1 million in revenues in under 36 months, every single one of you has the same capability as well. Next, for those of you working a job right now, keep in mind that all this is just for you as well. But one thing I want you to keep in mind is that you need to choose something that you can do in the pockets of your time if you do have a job. So like, working at a in-person type of office, right, where you need to open the doors at 8 o'clock in the morning and close the doors at 6 o'clock at night, probably not going to be possible. So again, doing something like sales or online or digital products is going to be a lot easier for you to do that. You need to avoid the types of businesses where you need to be physically there. There's a lot of businesses that you can create where it's service-based businesses where you actually don't have to be in person much at all. You can do Zoom calls just like this. Matter of fact, I do a lot of my team calls via Zoom. I recruit people via Zoom, train people via Zoom, meet clients via Zoom or phone calls. So it's like I don't even need to be anywhere. I can live in Miami Beach. I can be traveling throughout Europe and making sure my wife is super happy while I'm making all my calls and running my companies. Next, and lastly, for your niche, for those of you who are scared to possibly build a business on your own, keep in mind that this next point is for you, right? If you don't want to build a business on your own, if you don't have the startup capital, and you know that maybe you're not a number one, what I would highly recommend is that I would recommend that you go shadow somebody who is a absolute beast in their space, something similar to what you would like to get started in, and go kind of shadow them and work for free, make your money somewhere else and go work for free, or try to get a job there and try to get a feel for what it actually feels like. Because a lot of people think that they need to start a business in order to achieve all their financial goals, but I don't know if you guys knew this, but Steve Ballmer, who's one of the wealthiest people in the entire world, worth over $100 billion, did not start Microsoft. He ended up working as I think it was like the 30th employee or something like that at Microsoft, and then he became the CEO, owns like 2% of Microsoft. He's worth over $100 billion. So funny enough, you don't actually have to start any companies. There's many ways to build massive levels of wealth. You just have to know yourself, and obviously you can achieve major levels of wealth. I mean, that's just absolutely next level, but you don't have to actually start the business. So it's about more knowing yourself, shadowing the people, and get a real good feel of what you'd like to do. Next, let's just say you started your business. You chose, based on that, all the items that we talk about, choosing your niche. Next is getting your first customer. So it's about speed to getting your first dollar, right? It's like idea to dollar. The people who go from idea to dollar faster than most are typically going to have the most success. Money loves speed. Money loves fast. So, what I like to do is just I like to break things, right? Like not physically break things, but break systems, break processes. I like to follow a lot of rules. So a lot of what I'll do is hey, I'll pre-sell something. I have an idea. And I'm like, hey, let's get an idea of what the market's going to think about this. I'll pre-sell it before I even have the product or the service available. And I want to get a gauge from everybody and see how motivated our people are in possibly purchasing my service or my product. And then based on the marketplace responding to it, I then can provide and fulfill the need. And I can just return the money if I have say I had 2 people enroll in something. I had 1,000 people on a webinar. I pitched this one thing. One person enrolls for $5,000. I could just refund them their money, and I get a lot of feedback. But if I do a webinar as an example, I don't have anything to really offer, but I pitch something, and let's just say 500 people buy it at $1,000 or something like that. I'm like, okay, clearly there's a need, and I can go provide it. But it's idea to dollar. It's idea to dollar as fast as you possibly can. So people need to know about your business, and so many people have all these amazing ideas, but how many of them actually do you put to work and actually try to earn your first dollar? Alex Hormozi, wonderful guy. You should look him up. He has this wonderful way of breaking down lead generation that I absolutely love. So I continue to talk about it because I think it's a wonderful way to look at it. But basically, you need to market your product. You need to market your product, market yourself, right? You have to get the word out, and you can only do it by so many ways, guys, right? You either do cold one-to-one, which is cold calling. My team does 250,000 to 350,000 cold calls every single month. You cold emails. We send out tens of thousands of emails. You could, anything that's cold one-to-one individual. Then you have cold one-to-many, which is paid advertisements in any form or fashion. Next is warm one-to-one, where you're reaching out to your contact book in your phone. You're reaching out to your sphere of influence, people that go to networking events, people, friends of friends. And then the last one is warm one-to-many, which is social media, people who know you, more of an acquaintance type of experience. And it's a warm one-to-many. We have 18,000 subscribers on YouTube as an example, 60,000 across multiple platforms. I put out a ton of content talking about just things just like this, talking about basically how to help people scale, mostly in the real estate business, but mostly overall business in general. And there's only these 4 ways. If you're not going to do any one of these 4, how do you expect people to know about what you have? And it's some people have these wonderful ideas that they have this product, and they're like, why are not more people not buying from me? Well, it's how many people have you told this week, this month, this quarter, this year about your product or your service? And you'll probably wonder why you're not making any. You'll find out why people aren't paying you any money. What I found is saying, okay, I choose one, and I would tell you to choose one of these 4 different options, okay? And we go become the greatest of all time in that one thing. So for me, I chose cold calling. It is very low cost, very low overhead. There's very low barrier of entry. If you get really, really good at it, you can get wonderful results. So now, again, that's what I teach online. A lot of is how to be incredibly proficient over the phone. So I want to be the best in the world at it. That's why my team makes probably more cold calls than many other teams around the country. One day, I hope we make 1 million calls a week, right? Or 1 million calls a day. One day, right? We'll get there. But again, I'm choosing one thing and I'm going freaking bananas with it. And then we do a little bit of everything else, right? And we're trying to get a little bit better at everything else over time, but we go friggin' nuts. We go super deep on one and become the greatest of all time. Everything else you can slowly do as well. It's not an or, it's an and. Your first 1 to 10 customers in any type of business you choose, by the way, you might do it for free and or you might do it for very little money. You might even lose money on the first 1 to 10 customers, but you're going to get something incredibly important. You're going to get feedback from the product or service. You might, and if they have a wonderful experience, you might get some amazing testimonials. And last but not least, you're going to get a lesson. You're going to learn exactly what worked and what did not work in the process. So it's a wonderful way for you to test the market, give away your product or give away your service at a very low cost, if not free, to a bunch of people. Get some feedback, get some testimonials, and learn a bunch of lessons real quick, right? It's the best way you can possibly do it because a lot of people spend a ton of money on the restaurant as an example. They spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to start up the restaurant, and then they realize that nobody wants to buy your vegan cheesesteak, right? Like it's just all these little things that like why you could have just figured that out just by trying to get a bunch of people to taste it and realize that no one likes it. Now for the next customer. So the cool thing is that now that you've had a little bit of feedback, you got some testimonials, you learned what worked, what didn't work, you kind of made some tweaks within your business. Now about your next customer, and this is about having more of now that you have this enhanced experience, this enhanced knowledge, this enhanced understanding of what will actually solve this individual's problem, you can go back to all the customers that you just sold and you can say, hey, I can continue this service at X rate. Maybe it's a discount, maybe it's not, if they would like to continue. And you're going to then be able to go into structuring pricing, which is I could talk on for freaking hours, but just keep in mind that like structuring pricing, one thing you can do is that at the very beginning, have a decent margin. You don't need to go bananas and have 30 extra margins, right? And like kind of like I said with commercial real estate as an example why I chose it. I just like getting big checks, right? Like I wanted to always receive $100,000 check. We've done several of those. We do that every single month, basically, multiple times a month. But what's important to realize is like I didn't choose it for that reason, right? I didn't choose it because of the structuring pricing. But like in the consultative business that we have, right, or one of our the online coaching business, this is very, very important because what happens is that most people undercharge for their services. So what we learned is that like, hey, based on our feedback from our students, all the testimonials we get, and what we'll do is that based on how their performance, how well everybody's doing, and the demand of our product, we can increase our prices by 10 or 20% by every 5 to 10 customers until we find our perfect price point. Because what's interesting is that people are afraid of charging more money because they think they're going to lose people. But then what ends up happening is that you actually don't reach your actual target demographic. Because as an example, my coaching program is $9,500 for 12 months. And at the very, very beginning, we were doing it many years ago, 3 years ago, I guess, whenever we started, we charged $3,000 for a lifetime. Guess what? We still have one person who's in it for $3,000 per lifetime. That person got the greatest deal of all freaking time. So it's like we made, not that it's a mistake in doing that, but like obviously we had to test the market. And the only person that gets hurt by charging too little is us, right? As the business owner, right? Because when you make more money, you can scale better, pay people better, you can have a better environment, better service, better product, right? So the overall better experience is for everybody by charging more money. And then obviously I would tell you to increase your prices until you start having a 20 or 30% decline in your service or your product. And then obviously clearly you've charged too much, but there's going to be a good middle ground where you actually might see that if you charge 4 times as much money, you actually might get the same, if not more people to buy because it's perceived at a better, higher quality. You actually might be shocked. And then all of a sudden there might be a price where, if you charge too little, you might actually have almost nobody buying it because they are perceiving it as poor quality. Next is about building the right team. Now, obviously, there are some, not many, okay? There are some businesses, I've read books about several, I've watched content about several, of where there's one employee, one person, okay? And they make $10 million a year, okay? Or $1 million plus. The odds of that happening, by the way, are slim to none, okay? There are very few businesses that do that. Most of the time, and when that does occur, okay, in the majority of the time, it is an individual salesperson who's producing at that level. It's an independent contractor, right? In something like commercial real estate, insurance, financial advisory, solar, right? Like whatever it is, but individual salesperson going to sell, top salesperson making over $1 million a year, one individual. Now, in actual brick and mortar businesses and other things, it's very rare that you'll ever see one individual making over $1 million a year. Now, again, I'm talking about net, not revenues. So keep in mind that like it will be you plus. It'll be you plus an assistant, you plus support staff, you plus a manager, you plus salespeople, you plus your administrative assistants. So just keep in mind that like there's going to be many individuals that will come into your life, and one thing you'll need to learn over time is how to lead, how to attract individuals into your life, right? There's going to be multiple things that will take place. Now, obviously, this is going to be down the road, but building the right team is going to allow you to get to or surpass the 7-figure mark. To get to like $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 a year, you actually can do this pretty consistently by yourself. depending on the type of business that you're in, it's actually very common to be able to do that, especially in a sales type of role, to make several, 6 figures plus up to mid to high six figures on your own as a salesperson. But to go surpass that, you definitely should have employees. Now, keep in mind, one thing I actually wanted to share with you guys, which I thought was super freaking interesting, which is the average millionaire right now in the United States is a 61-year-old whose income has never exceeded $150,000. They had a bachelor's degree. They had, primary wealth drivers were long-term savings. They made investments early, and they took on very minimal debt. Now, by the way, this is single-digit millionaires. Okay, this is the majority of them. They bought one house and they lived in it for at least 2 decades, and they had a very frugal lifestyle. Now, I want to understand something. This is the average millionaire right now, single-digit millionaire. I want to keep in mind, this is not a bad thing, by the way. All right, many of you can become a millionaire. It might just take you to your 61 years old, right? Or some of you longer, some of you never. What I want to share with you, though, is not about how to become a single-digit millionaire, but is to make $1 million a year every year. And it's going to be very hard to do that through making 150 grand, right? Like or doing the same activity. I apologize, doing the same activities as an individual like this. So, like, if you watch Dave Ramsey as an example, who I think has wonderful content about how to save money and how to invest money smart. That type of content is for individuals who will never make more than $100,000, $200,000 a year. And people who do make more, I agree with a lot of his money management philosophies, but I'm talking about specifically starting a business. Right. So this is not just about, having a net worth of $1 million in 40 years from today, which, by the way, if you just invested in the S&P 500, $100 a month or $100 a week, I think is the number for the next 40 years straight, it would be actually pretty achievable to do that. Funny enough. But I'm specifically talking to those individuals who want to make $1 million a year and have financial freedom and abundance. Like I never would have imagined the life I live today. So a couple of things here. So in regards to building the team, right? Obviously, some businesses, as an example, will start out, or most businesses, almost 100% of the time, will start as just you. Okay. Most businesses will start out as just you. It might be just you for the first year. It might be for you for the first few years. But keep in mind that over the next decade or so, it'd probably be you plus a few, if not dozens, if not hundreds, and maybe thousands if you want to build a major company. And I'm not saying one is maybe better than the other. I'm not saying that whatsoever. But what I am saying is that it depends on what you desire in life. And if you're trying to build a $10 million a year company or a $1 billion a year company like I am, you will have to follow a different path, right? Like I need thousands of individuals to work alongside me, right? And work with me and partner with me in my journey. If I wanted to make $1 million a year, I could do that by myself and live a pretty good lifestyle as well. So just keep in mind, it depends on what you want. It's all about how you design it. And obviously, I highly recommend that you learn how to do the hard parts of your business first. A lot of people, what they do is they hire people for certain positions that they do not know how to do themselves. Let me give you a quick example. This is it's different than hiring a consultant, by the way. So this is the individual, as an example, who wants to start a restaurant, but it is terrible as a chef. They don't know how to make good food. They don't understand any part of the food world, right? And I actually think this is why a lot of the most successful restaurant businesses are actually owned by chefs, in my opinion. Same thing for commercial real estate as an example. If you're a horrible salesperson, right, and you're trying to get into commercial real estate as a brokerage, right, and as a broker, it's gonna be very, very difficult for you to grow that business because you don't really understand how to sell. It's gonna be the same thing of me trying to get into the coding world and build a SaaS business. I don't know anything about code. It would be very difficult for me to get into that world unless I, partner with them, which we can talk about partnerships later on. So I believe in understanding how to do the hard stuff. Like I built my website. I built all my automations. I built, a lot of everything to do with the service that we provide. I built out my sales scripts. I built out our processes, right? So I did all the hard stuff and then I recruited people to that position, right? I hired somebody to that position. I know it better than they do, and I can explain to them how to do it and know when they're doing a poor job and know when they're doing a good job. I feel like it's a massive mistake to not learn how to do something in your business because it makes you also vulnerable to collapse or major losses or incapable of growth, right? So as an example, in our world of brokerage, right, in our brokerage business, right, it would be really difficult if I did not know how to sell and I had to rely on somebody else to teach and train my salespeople, right? Because I would be 100% reliant on this individual for the growth of my business. So what I need, for me, I think it was very smart that I became the best version of me as a salesperson, right? Because I'll give you an even better example. When I was 20 years old, I read a book by Jay Abraham, okay? Probably the greatest business consultant of all time. And what I learned from him was all these amazing, wonderful things that, basically teach you how to scale a company. And I learned everything that you could possibly imagine. And I was like, I want to be a business consultant and teach people how to get more money out of their business. And I was like, thank God I thought this way. I said to myself, I was like, hey, why don't I just implement everything that I know And then in a decade from now, when I've seen success, I then can go out and teach individuals how to do it, just like I learned 10 years ago, and just put to work for myself. So now, again, I have three companies that do over $1 million a year now in revenues. And it's like being able to now go, like, now that I understand that, I now can go with full confidence saying this didn't work, this did work, and I don't have to rely on anybody else for my, not only my income, but for the growth of my companies.